The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning to all the listeners. On behalf of our embassy, I convey a warm welcome to all of you, including our expert speakers today for our webinar, which focuses on the topic digitization in banking trends in India. We have expert speaker Ms. Divya Soni, who will provide insights on the India macroeconomic update. We have Ms. Bhargavi Patel, who is going to shed light on government and central bank policies and reforms. And we have Mr. Yogesh Tiwari, who is going to provide his views on Deutsche Bank and its offerings in terms of supporting the digitization trends in India. So going forward and to introduce you about this program, Make in India Mittelstand Initiative, I have to inform that this is an intent on part of the German business community to convert the intent on part of the German business community into actual investments in India. Embassy has initiated this dedicated and strategic program in 2015. And the program is, in a way, India's red carpet for the German Mittelstand companies. Program is run on behalf of our embassy by our knowledge partner, EuroAsia Consulting, and with a network of competent partners such as Rodel and Partner, Khetan & Co. as tax and legal partners, IGCC as a partner chamber, Deutsche Bank, KfW DEG, and State Bank of India as financing partner. And we also have Global Innovation and Technology Alliance of CII as technology partner. Many state governments in India and a National State Investment Facilitation Agency, Invest India, is also part of this program. And MIM provides free of cost benefits of special workshops, networking, information exchange, etc. MIM program has entered into its sixth year in September in 2020. And this year we have achieved so far 151 Mittelstand companies within total declared investment volume of euro 1.4 billion. Under the MIM program, our MIM team would be happy to roll out its support to more German Mittelstand companies which are interested to do business in India. With that, I would like to hand over to Khetan and wish you all a very best for the webinar.
Thank you, Manish, for introducing MIM and giving welcome remarks. So, ladies and gentlemen, today we have three speakers from Deutsche Bank. Ms. Divya Soni, as Manish mentioned, that she will be presenting India macroeconomic update. She has been with bank with over 18 years, working in corporate banking division across various roles, spanning cash management, relationship coverage for local and multinational corporates. She currently heads the relationship and transaction banking vertical in Deutsche Bank India. Next speaker we have is Ms. Bhargavi Patel. She will be presenting us government central bank policies, reforms and initiatives toward digitization in banking sector. She has been with Deutsche Bank for more than 10 years now in corporate banking division in Deutsche Bank India. She is relationship manager over covering the multinational corporates primarily in Mumbai with large German portfolio. Third speaker we have is Yogesh Patwari, who is going to introduce us Deutsche Bank India Germany setup and also its offering to the companies. He has been with Deutsche Bank for around 9 years now, working with corporate bank in various roles and locations. He currently covers multinational clients in Mumbai and Kolkata. Prior to Deutsche Bank, he also worked with HSBC and Citibank. He's an MBA and chartered accountant. So speakers, thank you very much for joining the today's webinar. Now I'll just hand it over to you with sharing the screen. Yeah, to you, Miss Soni.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the introduction. Hello, everybody, and a good morning to all of you who are joining in from Germany, and good afternoon to anybody who's joining in from India. So on behalf of the entire Deutsche Bank team, extremely happy to be able to present to you a glimpse of what we believe is a present situation on the ground from a macroeconomic perspective. What are some of the trends that we are seeing emerge on the digitization side in banking specifically, and then how we as Deutsche specifically are partnering with companies in this journey of digitization. So as we get into this, I'll maybe just talk through the India macros a bit before handing it over to my colleagues to take you through the trends from a regulatory environment and what we're seeing in the banking space and specifically on the TB offerings. So I think just as we start off, maybe a couple of lines, on the COVID situation. So the COVID situation presently, India is clocking upwards of 350,000 cases of COVID a day. These are the official numbers. Unofficially, it could be slightly higher over the last few days. But I think the good news is, or the silver lining is, that in many states, the vaccination drive has ramped up or is being ramped up across the entire population. So basically from 1st of May, any adult is eligible to get vaccinated. So while what that means for us is that potentially moving into beyond the second wave, we have a tool at hand. To contain this, there are respective states which are coming up with measures, on localized lockdowns, restrictions on the economy locally. But I think if I were to just dovetail this into the scenario last year, I think the one thing which nobody's really doing is we're not going in for a national lockdown. And therefore the impact on economy, while will be felt, especially in the next few days, but will still be relatively localized, and it will not shut down economy like it did for a good 2 months last year. So just getting this context and getting into the specific scenario that we have on the ground, our belief is that we do think, sorry, can you go back to the previous slide for a minute? Yeah, we do believe that in this year, the economy is going to rebound, and we show a growth potentially of above 10% over last year. Of course, we're keeping in mind the fact that for two months last year, the economy was practically shut down. And this year, like I said, despite the heavy caseload of COVID, interstate movement and movement of goods across, or goods or even people across, is not kind of banned. And therefore, the economy hasn't really come to a standstill at the moment. Factories are functioning, although it might be at a lower capacity than usual. So given all of that, we feel that 2021 will definitely see that rebound happening. The inflation we expect getting into next year will be will go down even lower, obviously because the input costs are expected to fall with, we expect that taxes will also kind of get rationalized to some extent. The rupee has depreciated against the dollar last year. No surprises on that, also because basically the dollar has been strengthening. But despite that, the Reserve Bank of India has built dollar reserves, which are at an all-time high, effectively, over the last few months, to about almost $600 billion US dollars. We have seen a lot of interest cuts in last year, but I think getting into this year, the Reserve Bank of India has maintained a status quo on the interest rates. Typically, the repo rates are in the 4% range. And we expect this to continue as long as the RBI uses this repo rate as a measure to counter the COVID impact on the spending. Now, like I alluded to, I think last year, because of the lockdown, the goods did drastically, the movement of goods did drastically kind of drop down. We've seen that in the economic data that comes out. But I think getting into this year, this particular lockdown phase, it is not as bad as last year, and hopefully this will not really have that kind of a lasting impact, but more a momentary lapse over a few-week horizon. A real impact of COVID, obviously, the unemployment rates have increased, but I think hopefully with a lot of emphasis on domestic production, the Prime Minister of India has come up with a program of Atmanirbhar Bharat, which basically means self-sustained India and having a lot of production capacity being built in India. Incentivize a lot of schemes that the government of India, the the finance ministry has kind of come up with to incentivize setting up of these production capabilities in India will hopefully have this impact, a positive impact back on the employment as well. Moving on to the next slide, getting into specific sectors, if I can, just spend 30 seconds back, or maybe I'll just go ahead on this. Like I said, I think what the government has done is that there is a very, very heavy emphasis to boost local production. And therefore, all of the government policies are kind of tailored around that. So there are initiatives such as import duties have been hiked so that the local production actually can be ramped up. There is a package provided by the Government of India to boost the medium and small enterprises and to support them by either some sort of extended credit or even just incentivize their setting up of production with some lower taxation rates. In line with the interest rates going down, the borrowing rates have across the banking platform gone down, and dramatically over the last few months, which is further a step in the direction to incentivize borrowing towards capex, setting up more capacity, or enhancing really the production capability of the country. We do expect that, given certain geopolitical situation globally, in the medium-term positive impact from an Indian economy perspective, which we're looking at, is that India could potentially become an outsourcing hub for many companies globally, and there could potentially be a relocation of some production capacity from China into India as an alternative. Like I said, the Make in India campaign or the Atmanirbhar campaign, which the Government of India has kind of launched, will directly have a boost in the production capacity, and there will be probably some more initiatives which the government will announce to have some more FDI coming into India as the near-term impact of COVID kind of recedes a bit. What the government is also looking at is privatization of certain sectors to make the industries much more competitive and efficient. This is an ongoing program. So there is, for example, Air India, which is a national carrier, is also in the process of getting privatized or inviting bids for privatization. And similarly, a number of other sectors which are kind of presently in this space. Very similar to the trends that we've seen globally, consumption trends last year dramatically dipped down, per capita. The investment kind of started to look up towards the Q4 of last year, Q4 of the calendar year of last year. But we still do expect that the overall investment as a percentage of the GDP will still dip a little further through the course of this year before picking up probably sometime towards next year. I will move on and hand the mic to my colleague Bhargavi, who could take us through some of the trends which are being enabled by the government, by the regulator, and by the market at large. Bhargavi, over to you.
Thank you, Divya. Hello, everyone. So now we move on to this section, which is the actual trends in the banking and the financial sector in India. So I've divided this section into two parts. The first part is basically giving an overview of the various reforms that the government and the central bank has done. And the second part will cover 2 or 3 key methods or themes which are more relevant from a corporate's perspective. So in the slide which is in front of you, where we've shown how the landscape has evolved in the country since the last 5 or 6 years. So beginning with the demonetization announcement in 2015-16, the government has tried to promote a more digitized economy, less cash as such. With that, there have been a number of payment methods which have come about. So UPI, then instant payments, credit cards, debit cards, etc., have taken on significant number of transactions are being done in these methods. Points to note from a corporate perspective in terms of the structural reforms are the reduced corporate tax rate for new manufacturing setups to 17%, production-linked incentives for new setups, wherein for an incremental turnover or an incremental sales per product, the government would incentivize for percentages as much as 4 to 6% of the
Bhargavi, sorry to interrupt. Bhargavi, can you hear me?
incremental sales. The intercompany borrowing guidelines, the external commercial borrowing guidelines have been significantly and liberalized
Ms. Patel?
significantly.
Ms. Patel, can you hear me?
So earlier it was mainly towards yes.
Your bandwidth is low, so I guess it would be good if you off your video.
I can hear you.
Yeah. Yes, it's good now. Can you start again? Thanks.
Yes, I can. I'll quickly cover this slide again. I'm sorry for the network issues. Two of the reforms which are more structural in nature, which help corporates, are the reduced tax rates to 17% for new manufacturing setups, production-linked incentive scheme. So for each incremental sale which is done for a specific product which is manufactured in India, the government would incentivize up to 4 to 6% of the incremental sales. Liberalized intercompany borrowing guidelines as such. And one point to note is there are a new set of current account operating guidelines which have come up, which basically restrict banks from opening accounts for borrowers who have a cash credit or an overdraft facility from any other bank. So this is primarily to bring in a credit discipline into the country, wherein the daily flows are routed through the main lending banks. With respect to the digitization reforms, regular payment modes that companies used in India, which are real-time gross settlements and the NEFT payments, which are your regular electronic payment methods, they've become 24/7. So they are extremely important and allow companies to make large value payments even on Saturdays or Sundays. Please, could you move to the next slide?
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you see the next slide? I guess there are some network issues with Ms. Patel. So kindly, sorry for inconvenience caused, audience. I guess she had just rejoined. Ms. Patel, can you hear us? There are some network issues and we are not able to hear you well.
I'm sorry, Ketan.
Now it's
Now can you hear me?
yeah. Now it's good. Go ahead.
Okay, so on this slide, we've basically covered the different types of digital payments which have evolved in the country. So from a corporate's perspective, the UPI or the Unified Payments Interface, say an internet banking interface and a point of sale interface are extremely relevant and important. Artificial intelligence, blockchain technologies, robotic process automation, increase in the use of security and various applications towards building greater security with the increase in the digitization. These are some of the areas where fintechs, banks, everyone is working towards to build in more and more efficiencies, and to say how to reduce manual efforts is where the focus is on. And digital payments, of course, have grown significantly. So in the last 2 to 3 years, the volumes have really picked up in the country. We can go on to the next slide. Yeah. So I'll just take a minute to highlight the fintech boom in this country. So India is one of the fastest growing fintech markets globally. The kind of areas that the fintechs focus on, earlier it was maybe just a normal payment or a normal collection, but now it spreads across the entire cycle for a corporate, beginning from right from manufacturing up to the end point where they receive the funds and they have to do reconciliation. So there are applications and players in the market which focus on instant payments, how to manage the fraud in terms of, say, if you have to onboard a supplier, how do you ensure that the credit risk that you are going to bring in with the supplier is fine and it's within the limits that your corporate permits. The reconciliation methods which have helped do faster reconciliation and help match the funds received with the outstandings in the books. So these are some of the key segments that a lot of these fintechs are investing on. Significant funding has been seen in the country. So around $5.4 billion has been seen in the last 1.5 years only across the various series of funding rounds in the country. We can go on to the next slide. Okay, so now we'll come on to two basically domestic methods which have grown in significance in the country. One is UPI or Unified Payments Interface, primarily targeting the B2C segment. So this is an instant money transfer mechanism available through even a mobile device, wherein basically a virtual account or a UPI handle is created, which is linked to maybe a scan code or a QR code, which basically any customer can scan and pay to a corporate. So the various use cases for that range from normal merchant payments through a single application, utility bill payments, over-the-counter payments. For example, I'm sitting at home and I'm watching something on television and I need to do a recharge instantaneously. I can do it via the UPI method, and then in 1 minute I can go back to watching the show that I wanted to watch. So these are some of the use cases of Unified Payments Interface. Coming on to NACH, or National Automated Clearing House. This is basically a pull-based mechanism for collecting or paying for recurring types of receipts and payments. So the reason why it's taken on significantly in the last few years is because of the e-mandate registration facility, or the simplified method in which a person can register themselves for NACH. The various use cases that happen for an NACH are basically for collections. Say if a mutual fund has multiple investments to be done every month, so if you want to subscribe to it, it can be easily done through an NACH mandate. Utility bill payments, which need to be done on a monthly basis, So from a perspective of a corporate who needs to make payments using these methods, it can be used for payroll payments, dividend payments, interest payments, etc. So you can see the graphs, they show the increasing trend in terms of the value and the volume of the collections. We can go to the next slide. Okay. So this slide basically covers the cross-border related initiatives taken by the central bank. So India is typically very regulated in terms of the funds which flow into the country or out of the country. Example for imports, for each import which comes into the country, earlier there used to be a triplicate bill of entry copy that needed to be submitted to a bank for making the import payment pertaining to the import. So now there is Reserve Bank has come up with a system are supposed to match off the import which has happened with the payment that needs to be done. Similarly, for exports,
Patel,
for each export which happens.
Ms. Patel, we lost you for last. We lost you for last 30 odd seconds. So it would be good if you repeat last maybe 30-40 seconds whatever you have briefed.
Okay. So I'll cover this slide once again on cross-border related central bank reforms. Basically, these reforms are aimed at reducing the paperwork which is involved in the cross-border flows, right? So the Reserve Bank of India has helped develop a system called IDPMS or EDPMS, which is accessed by three people. One is the relevant inward or credit receipt into the country needs to be matched off. That happens in the EDPMS or the Export Data Processing and Management Monitoring System. And similarly for IPMS, which is imports, the customs did away with the triplicate bill of entry copy, which earlier needed to be submitted to a bank for making an import payment. That has been done away with, and banks can basically refer to this electronic bill of entry details on IDPMS and subsequently release an import payment. So it's important that in terms of monitoring, wherein for each cross-border trade which happens, the respective flow of funds also happens, and these systems help monitor that in a far more efficient way than the previous paper-based method. Secondly, the second reform that I would like to bring about is with respect to the FX liberalization or the changed guidelines or the liberalized FX guidelines. So earlier, companies needed to submit statutory auditor certificates and declarations confirming that what they've hedged in foreign currency is according to the regulatory norms, and basically the auditor certificate used to be very heavy in terms of compliances. So with these new liberalized guidelines, these documentations have been done away with, and even anticipated exposures, which is say for example, if you have a forecasted equity inflow into the country or an investment which is forecasted where the value might not be exactly known, even these exposures can be hedged right now itself. So these are the basic reforms which help reduce the documentation pertaining to the cross-border flows in the country. Now I would like to hand over to Yogesh to explain how Deutsche Bank has worked on these various methods and brought about a change in the way our corporates do the banking in the country and how they make it more efficient.
Oh, thank you, Bhargavi. Hello, everyone. Am I audible, Ketan?
Yes, yes. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. So we're on slide number 12, and at the beginning, we'll just give you a very brief glimpse of our India franchise. So we're the largest European bank in India and very clearly the #1 foreign bank. We are well capitalized and continue to invest more resources, given that India is the third largest contributor to our global revenues. So it's extremely important, even for the group globally. We are also a technology hub for the group. So we are spearheading the bank's API program. And, we've committed about €13 billion of investment in technology. Bulk of that is expected to come to India. So that also, shows why Deutsche Bank in India has been at the forefront of digital innovation. India also has the largest employee footprint outside of Germany. As you can see, so we have a very large human resource capital in India. And we're definitely the banker of choice to more than 650 Indian subsidiaries of German domiciled corporates. So, we are the first port of call for any German corporate looking to invest more in India. So this was just to give you a brief synopsis of, Deutsche Bank's presence in India. We will now move to slide number 13 for some more details on our award-winning franchise. So, as you can see here, we offer the complete spectrum of banking solutions in India. So, be it automated payments and collections, cross-border flows, investment banking, online banking platforms, workflow solutions, wealth management, or retail banking. So we are, we can be a one-stop shop for any and every need of a corporate in India. We also have a very strong focus on partnering with fintechs. So, Bhargavi earlier spoke about how fintechs have been booming in India, right? Thanks to digitization initiatives taken by the government and also, a young, intelligent population. So Deutsche Bank, we realized pretty early on that there were a lot of solutions that fintechs were working on and they were pretty good at it. So we have extended partnerships with them to solve some very unique problems that our clients face in their routine treasury activities. So we'll talk about some of these in the subsequent slides. And as you can see on this slide, we continue to win several awards for our best-in-class solutions. Many of these solutions are bespoke and they help our clients in their automation journey. We can now move to the next slide. Yeah, thanks. So here we'll talk about some of the innovative digital solutions that we have worked on and which can bring in efficiencies in a corporate client's value chain. So the flow chart that is given on the slide, it shows, yeah. So it shows the various stakeholders that a corporate client has, and they have to deal with, as part of their daily processes. So this gives you a snapshot of how we are simplifying and automating some of these processes, and we are trying to focus on each and every stage of the value chain, right? So some of these solutions we'll pick up and discuss in more detail in subsequent slides, but just to give you, some perspective for corporates that work with dealers and distributors, and you can see that in bullets number 1 and 2. It is an arduous task to onboard dealers and distributors, do credit profiling, complete KYC, monitor risk on an ongoing basis. So we have in-house solutions and we have tied up with fintech partners to completely automate these activities, thereby reducing the need for corporate clients to dedicate manpower towards these activities. So, a large part of their manual processes can be taken away and they can simply focus on their business requirements. Then we have a single platform, as shown in bullets number 3, 4, and 5, where our corporate customers, they can place orders, view invoices, make payments, and from corporate's perspective, it provides a complete reconciliation of each payment at an invoice level. So again, a lot of the manual paperwork or movement of paper between different entities in the value chain, that gets completely eradicated. Similarly, on the collections side, collections within this platform that I spoke about or outside of this platform, can be automatically reconciled through our Payer ID solution, which identifies each and every payer through a virtual account. So technically, any collection that hits a corporate's account can be automatically identified to be belonging to a particular payer, and hence reconciliation in your ERP could also be automated through our bank statements or other MIS, which can be directly uploaded onto your ERP. So this was on the collection side. Similarly, on the vendor payment side, we have strong controls in place to prevent fraud and errors. So we do validation of pay details. We've shown that here in bullet number 7. We will talk more about our risk management framework in a few minutes. But just to give you a perspective that both for collections and payments, we have strong technology-enabled solutions to help clients in meeting their requirements. Our systems are capable of reading a lot of details, which we pick up from your transaction instructions, your bank statements, and other data. And we can throw up interesting insights and analytics that can help you actually in decision making. So we have a very strong analytics platform. Again, all of it is sent to clients on a digital via digital channels, and they can be sent in a way which can be directly consumed by your ERP as well. So Bhargavi spoke about liberalization that the government of India has done on with respect to import and export documentation. So we have an award-winning platform for automating and digitizing these cross-border flows. We will also talk about this in a little more detail. While this gives a snapshot, the scope of our solutions is much wider, and there are several offerings which are very specific to certain industries. But here we want to just give you a flavor of how we are working across the value chain to bring in efficiencies, and we're using digital innovation at each stage, right? So whether it is in-house innovation using our own innovation labs or using fintech partners, we are trying to make processes a lot simpler and thereby automate to the extent possible. So Ketan will move to slide number 15. So here now we will share more details about some of the solutions that I already spoke about in the earlier slide. So first is digitized import-export. So Bhargavi spoke about it in detail already, and some of you may already be aware that we have very stringent controls in India for any outward or inward foreign remittance. So this historically has also led to a lot of cumbersome documentation, which clients had to submit manually to the banks, and then banks would verify details, do regulatory reporting to Reserve Bank of India, and then make these payments. Now, with government authorities working on digitizing regulatory information that flows into the IDPMS and EDPMS portals, we got an idea, right? So we thought that we seek a lot of these details via paper submissions from our clients. But a lot of this is already available on these portals. So we launched our TradePay platform that could pull data from these government portals and allow our clients to simply check that data and then authorize payments if everything is in order. So there is absolutely no need to submit any paper documents to the bank. There's no need to even scan and upload on our platform, right? They can simply check details which are already available on the platform, which comes from government sources, and then completely authorize these payments in a digitized and regulated in a paperless manner. And to make this even better, the portal is capable of completing the regulatory formalities in an automated manner. So earlier, post an import payment was made from India, clients had to separately try and reconcile the payment data with the bill of entry data, which customs would have generated, and then submit to the bank for doing a regularization and submitting the details to the Reserve Bank of India. Similarly, similar requirement existed on the export side. But now this regulatory reporting can be done in a completely paperless and digitized manner using our TradePay platform. So this becomes like a one-stop shop for making and collecting payments and completing all regulatory formalities and everything in a digital manner. We'd be very happy to share that this TradePay platform recently won the Best Use of IT Systems Award at the BFSI Summit of 2020. So, this has been acknowledged as an industry first and industry best in class solution. In the second column, we talk about our DB Frontier solution. So this again is a continuation of what I spoke about in the earlier slide. This is the platform that can be used for invoicing, receiving payment and reconciliation of each receipt from distributors and dealers. So it completely helps to eliminate paper from the value chain, and it has options to view the dashboards. At an individual distributor level. So the distributors can log in, either through a web portal or a mobile app, and look at their specific customized dashboards. They can see which invoices have been generated, which are due for payments. Then the platform itself allows them to make payments. And from the corporate's perspective, it helps you to streamline your order to cash cycle through serving real-time information to your distributors and also seamless reconciliation. The third column is about Gem Connect, which is our technology-enabled automated FX settlement algorithm. So we use data available in our systems, data available in clients' ERP, and data available in any other system that we could potentially access to automatically do FX settlements. So this could include utilizing forward contracts, canceling them, taking rates for pending transactions, and all of this in a completely transparent and automated manner. We have a case study about Gem Connect towards the end of the presentation, which will help you understand this in more detail. We also have an FX for Cash platform that gives direct access to our clients to more than 130 currency pairs in India. So typically, the number of currency pairs that most banks in India could deal in would be around 20 or 30, depending on how many Nostro accounts does the Indian branch have. But we use FX for Cash platform where we can access potentially accounts which our London branch has in India, and thereby give clients the direct conversion capabilities in 130 plus currencies. So we'll talk more about Gem Connect in a subsequent slide. Now we will move to the next slide. Yeah, thanks. In the value chain slide, I spoke about the strong risk mitigation and control technology that we use. So we use machine learning, AI, and dynamic rules to identify and prevent frauds. So we are able to do beneficiary bank detail validation. We can analyze your historical data to identify any unusual payment. If a payment is going to a new counterparty or to the same counterparty but to a new bank account, or if the value of the payment is significantly higher than what the corporate has been paying them on a regular way. So all of these can be identified even before the payment is executed and highlighted to the corporate client for making the right decision. Or maybe they want to hold back the payment or still go ahead and process it. That option is given to the clients. This our again focus on machine learning AI also helps us to give customizable analytics, which are very detailed reports that can help clients to take decisions with respect to their collections, payments, tax payments, returns, and a whole lot of other topics. So and as I mentioned earlier, these analytic reports could be served in a format which can be directly consumed by your ERP. So we are trying at every stage we are trying to make the entire process completely automated for our corporate clients. I mentioned earlier that India is leading our global API program. So APIs can be used for real-time connectivity for payments, collections, and reconciliation or any other data exchange. So I think Bhargavi spoke about a couple of use cases, right, where we are trying to see if payments could be made using QR codes, distributor incentive payouts could be done seamlessly, or for clients who are looking at connectivity via apps for their customers. APIs can be a great connectivity mechanism for real-time transfer of data, and Deutsche Bank is clearly a leader here. And India is leading this program for Deutsche Bank globally. So these were very brief some of the solutions that we picked from an automation perspective that we are working on in India. We are live with most of these. Now I'll take you through a unique client situation which we solved using TradePay and Gem Connect. So we'll move to the next slide for a case study. Yes. So we had a situation where our client they had to make cross-border payments out of India for imports, and they were booking hedges. So FX contracts. These are all onshore hedges. But the maturity of these hedges, didn't always correspond to the payment dates, and it was difficult for the client to, number one, reconcile which contract to use for which. Sorry, I just got an error warning. Ketan, are you able to hear me correctly?
Yes, Yogesh, we can hear you.
Okay. I don't know. I just got sure. Thanks. Yeah. I mentioned that a client was having difficulty in reconciling that which forward contract pertained to which payment, and then they also had to share this information with the bank. And that usually was why it completely manual and a paper-based submission. So this process obviously had a lot of, it was prone to a lot of errors and inefficient. It was not really an efficient process. Plus, there were situations when client could miss up on utilizing a contract, and then they had to get the contract cancelled, which also had a monetary implication. So we onboarded the client onto TradePay, this which I spoke about, our online platform for a paperless import payment. Then we agreed certain rules with the client on how to use their FX contracts. Now, using payable data from TradePay and FX contract data from client's ERP, and also data that was available in our ERP systems, treasury ERP systems, we automated the entire process. So client did not have to worry about providing any FX contract data to the bank, and they were anyway not required to provide any papers-based documents to us for import payments. We agreed certain rules with them on how to utilize the forward contracts, and on that basis, we were able to make payments on a real-time basis, by utilizing the client's forward contracts as per the agreed rules, and also provide the client a real-time reconciliation on an Autobahn trade blotter. So they could actually transparently see what the bank was doing with each of their payments. This sounds very simple, but from a client's perspective, this was a huge innovation, right? It completely eliminated reconciliation, manual tracking, and paper requirements from their end, and we actually used data that was available with us and with the client to automate the entire process. This solution can be again extended to for rolling over of forward contracts, canceling them, utilizing them partly, and we can define the rules, right? We also have another client situation where we are able to extend the same solution to offshore NDF hedges as well. So where we could potentially match the spot executions in India with unwinding of hedges that have been booked with us in the NDF market. So we are working on solutions that can completely eliminate any and every manual work that the client has to do in their daily treasury activity. It could be with respect to their daily domestic payments and collections, with how they interact with their vendors, how they interact with their customers, with cross-border flows, wherever they're hedging, how to effectively utilize these hedge contracts, or do whatever the client wants to do with these contracts. So I think this should have given a glimpse into what is potentially possible by using technology and data that is already available with us. So with this, we come to the end of our presentation, and we should open up for Q&A now.
Thank you, Yogesh and Ms. Patel and Ms. Soni for presentation on your insights on the digitization trends in India. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are open for Q&A session. So if you have any questions for Deutsche Bank team, please click on raised hand icon on your panel, and then I'll unmute you to take up your questions. Meanwhile, I have received one question on chat, which is asking who would be the one-point contact for Deutsche Bank India in case we want to for this cross-border payment. Is it Miss Soni or it's you, Yogesh?
So yeah. So Ketan, it can be any of us, and typically the coverage of clients in India is divided by geography. So India is a fairly large country, and we have different coverage contacts in different parts of India. But the client can reach out to any of us, and depending on the location of the client, we will be very happy to direct him to the correct contact.
Okay. Thank you, Yogesh. I don't see any raised hand or any questions coming in. So I guess we don't have any questions from the audience. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining in for today's webinar. We would be sharing this presentation along with the contact details of our speakers with you with the recorded session and the PPT, of course. and we will definitely like to welcome you in our next webinar. So thank you, Ms. Soni, thank you, Yogesh, thank you, Ms. Patel, for excellent session today.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
Thank you. Thanks for this
Sorry the
opportunity.
technical glitch. Yeah.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye.